Saelah opened the delivery box, finally getting around to unpacking her suppressants now that she needed them. She removed the packing slip and the packing paper. Taking out the extra strength scent patches, she paused because they were the only things in the box. She grabbed the packing slip and found that the suppressants were listed there, but beside quantity, it said unavailable. Slight panic set in and she headed down the hall to Denny's room. She knocked, shifting from foot to foot as she waited for him to call her in. She knew he was awake. She'd heard him exit the bathroom several minutes ago after his shower. "Come in," he called. "Denny, my suppressants didn't come," she said, stepping into the room. "Sure they did. The delivery box is in the kitchen, but my suppressants aren't in there. The packing slip says it was unavailable. They didn't even call me. They might have had an issue with distribution. You can contact them and have them schedule a rush delivery." She could, because even if they didn't have them when they mailed her package, they might have them now. However, it would still take at least 10 days for her to get them as opposed to the 3 weeks it normally would take. "I'll still need some until they arrive. I have a date today," or brand would be similar. Denny rubbed his chin. "You won't find anything with that dosage here. Japan is a lot stricter on medication regulations, which is why we had the auto ship set up from back home. Could I take multiple of one to get the same dose or close to it?" "You could, but I wouldn't recommend it. There could be adverse side effects that aren't reversible." "What am I supposed to do? Maybe I should cancel the date." "You don't have to do that. It isn't like you'll go into rut today. The other suppressants are still in your system, and until they get here, you'll take the strongest ones allowed by the regulation. Make yourself some tea to calm down, place an express order, and finish getting ready. I'll run to the nearest pharmacy and get you some to use until the others arrive." Saelah took a deep breath. Her anxious and frazzled pheromones had filled Denny's room without her realizing it. She was worried, but she trusted him. "Thank you," she said, and her friend pulled her into a hug and kissed her forehead. "What are friends for?" he inquired. "Let me finish getting dressed and I'll head out." Saelah nodded when he released her and exited his bedroom, going back into the kitchen. She turned on the electric kettle before going into the living room and opening both windows. She wanted to air out the anxious fragrance that hung in the air. The last thing she wanted was for any slight remnant to linger when they came to pick her up. There was no need to worry them because she'd had a minor freak out. Denny left as she returned to the kitchen. She made her tea and took it into her bedroom, where the outfit she'd chosen lay on the bed along with the 3 wrapped courting gifts she planned to give them. There were a couple of places she planned for them to go, and then she would invite them back to her apartment to eat. She'd noticed they seemed to enjoy it when she cooked for them, and decided to do that before giving them their gifts. Saelah took a couple of slow sips of her tea before putting the cup on the nightstand. She changed out of the robe she put on after her shower into a pair of high-waisted shorts and an amethyst short-sleeve crop top. She put on all the courting gifts they'd given her and her favorite perfume before finishing her tea while placing an express order for her pills. The front door opened as she was returning the cup to the kitchen, and Denny came into view with a pharmacy bag. "These are the closest in dosage to what you're taking," he told her, pulling a box of pills from the bag. Saelah took them and found the dose was 25 milligrams lower than what she normally took. "If you want to, you can make an appointment to get a prescription for something stronger, but it's still going to fall short of what you take now by 15 milligrams, he informed. That might be her next step first thing Monday morning. She knew it wasn't always wise to switch the type of suppressants being taken so frequently, but she didn't feel confident enough to go any amount of time without some in her system, even if it would only be for a few days. "Thank you," she said, opening the box to take out one of the individually wrapped pills and dry swallowing it. "I think I'll do that." "You're welcome. What time are they coming to pick you up?" Denny asked. Saelah looked at the microwave clock. "They should be here in a few minutes," she replied. She put the pills in the drawer and went to her bedroom. She moved her belongings from the tan purse she'd been using last week to a white crossbody with a purple buckle. She was double-checking that she had everything when the doorbell sounded. Saelah exited her bedroom as she heard Denny open the front door and greet her alphas. She found the 4 of them standing in the entry. "You 4 have fun," Denny said before heading to the living room to close the windows. "I'm going to hang out with Sukuna in a few hours, so I probably won't be here when you get back." She greeted her alphas as she pulled her shoes from the shoe cabinet. Kento took them from her and squatted in front of her to help her into them. When he stood, he gave her a soft kiss on the lips. "You always look so gorgeous, pretty." He stepped aside and Suguru pulled her into his chest. "Yes, you do," he agreed, kissing her. "Agreed," Satoru said, tipping her chin up when Suguru stepped away and pressing his lips to hers. "You 3 always look as if you stepped out of a modeling magazine," she started. "It makes me almost hate it for everyone else since you belong to me," she teased with a smile, and the 3 chuckled. "We sure do, little alpha," Satoru replied. They exited the apartment, and when they made it to the sidewalk, the car parked there was not Satoru's. "Kento drove," Suguru said, as if he could read her mind. She didn't know he had one since Satoru always drove. It's usually easier for Satoru to drive since he can pick everyone up on his way, and we'd have to go backwards to get him. But I was in his area this morning running an errand, Kento replied as they got in. "Where to first, pretty?" "The zoo," she replied. The ride was taken in comfortable silence, with soft music filtering through the car and Kento's hand on her thigh. When they arrived, they waited in line to pay for admission, and when Suguru started to pull his wallet out, she stopped him. "No, you might have picked me up, but this is my date," she told them, and paid their admission before they could protest. Once inside, she read the signs that directed to the different animals. She planned for them to make a lap around the entire zoo, so she chose to start on the left. Satoru draped his arm over her shoulders and she grabbed Suguru and Kento's hands. "We're going left," she said, and Suguru led the way, walking slightly in front of them. They spent an hour and a half at the zoo. Saelah took several pictures of the animals and with her outfits before they left and headed to their second destination, the planetarium, where again she had to stop one of them from paying so she could. The show lasted an hour, and she enjoyed the display. It felt so serene, and she honestly could have stayed there longer, but she had eaten nothing for breakfast other than a slice of egg toast. They headed back to her apartment, and when they walked her to the door, she invited them in. This time, she had slippers waiting for each of them. Black for Suguru, dark blue for Satoru, and gray for Kento. "I thought I'd make lunch for us, albeit a late one," she said as she went into the kitchen. "Do you want some help, little one?" Suguru asked. "No, I've got it. Make yourselves comfortable." Satoru leaned against the counter, and not there watching me, she chided playfully. "Go to the living room." "Such a bossy little future mate," he replied with a smirk. "I told you I could be," she countered. "And we told you we'd enjoy it," Satoru replied with a smirk before going into the living room where Kento and Suguru sat on the couch, the latter flipping through the channels. She cooked them lunch and carried the plates 2 at a time to the low table in the living room, waving them off when they tried to help. The small table in her kitchen only had 2 chairs, so eating in the living room was the better choice. Saelah poured them each a glass of homemade lemonade she made that morning and carried them to the table. The immediate rumble from all 3 men stroked her ego. She enjoyed hearing it whenever they were pleased by something she did or said. It was a compliment without words. "I think we should kidnap you from Denny," Satoru said. "That isn't a bad idea," Suguru agreed. "While I usually would steer clear of committing crimes, that's one I can get behind," Kento said. "You want to kidnap me so I can cook for you all the time," she teased with a raised brow. "The food would be a bonus," Suguru said. "We want to kidnap you so you're always with us," Satoru stated. "Such a smooth talker," she replied. "He is, but it's true," Kento responded. They ate their food as they conversed, and when they finished, before she could stand, all 3 men had gathered the dishes and headed into the kitchen. They made an assembly line at the sink and counter, and it was amusing seeing these large men in her small kitchen. However, there was also something oddly comforting about watching them do something so domestic in her space. They found where everything went fairly easily, and when they finished, she asked them to sit on the couch while she went into her bedroom and grabbed their courting gifts. She passed them out and watched as they opened them. She got in them digital picture frames, but she'd upgraded the software and written a program that linked them together. As long as they were connected to Wi-Fi, whatever photos any of them added via QuickShare would be shared to each of them, the ones she'd gotten for herself included. She explained to them how they worked and that she'd already loaded any pictures she had of them onto it. "Since you can't kidnap me yet, hopefully this will work for the time being," she told them. "It might hold us over for a while," Satoru replied. "Thank you, little Alpha." "I have the perfect place for it," Kento said. "My first courting gift, and it means I get to see you whenever I want. I couldn't ask for anything better," Suguru stated. Saelah smiled. She hadn't been sure those had been the right choice. However, she was already scrapbooking their relationship both digitally and physically, and she wanted to share it with them. "If you aren't tired of us yet, why don't we watch a movie?" Satoru suggested. "We can do that," she agreed. He held his hand out from where he sat, and she took it, allowing him to pull her onto his lap. Saelah hadn't been able to focus on the movie that had just gone off, nor was she able to follow the conversation the 3 men were currently having about said movie. She felt too in tune with her sense all day, but when she sat on Satoru's lap, it had gotten even stronger. She felt as if there was a buzzing, a tingling sitting like a thin layer on top of her skin. She assumed it was from the change in suppressants, and it didn't help the situation at all because she felt sensitive for some reason. Whatever Satoru was saying was cut off as she kissed him. She wasted no time slipping her tongue into his mouth. Saelah wasn't normally the dominant one when she kissed any of them, so she coaxed Satoru's tongue until he took the lead. His hand settled on her waist, squeezed comfortingly, possessively, and their scents mingled. Her jasmine bloomed into something sweeter, and she felt him harden beneath her as his scent sharpened with arousal. "What was that for, little Alpha?" Satoru asked when they finally pulled apart to take a much-needed breath. She didn't get a chance to answer him, not that she had one for him, as Suguru pulled her from the older Alpha into his own lap and kissed her, dealing the small amount of air she'd been able to pull into her lungs. Her tongue followed his pliantly as he kissed her slowly, as if he were devouring her, taking his time to work her up. His hand went to the back of her neck, fingers brushing against the scent gland there. A shiver ran through her as she moaned against his lips, which quickly turned into a gasp as he nipped her bottom lip before pulling away. The deep rumble from Kento drew her attention and he beckoned her. She moved to him, almost in a haze of desire, and was pulled into another searing kiss. His arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer as if that were possible. The smell of arousal was thick in the air, and Saelah wondered if watching her with one another aroused them. Wetness grew between her thighs, and she shifted on Kento's lap before pulling apart. The sexual tension was so thick in the air you could cut it with a knife, and she felt like she was holding her breath as she nibbled her bottom lip. The layer she felt on her skin seemed to shift like an electric current. Her phone rang, causing her to start at the sound in the quiet room. Slowly, she moved off Kento's lap and grabbed the phone from the kitchen counter. A client's name flashed across the screen, and she excused herself to the bedroom to take it, hoping that getting away from the combined scents would help calm her desire. Satoru tried to calm himself, but the lingering aroma of arousal made it difficult. It only served to make him even harder than he already was. The sweet smell of her jasmine felt like it was caressing him, along with something even more tantalizing. "I think we could all benefit from some fresh air," Kento stated. Before either of them could answer, Saelah returned. That sweet scent returned with her, and Satoru couldn't help but take a deep inhale. "I'm sorry, I have to take care of an emergency issue for a client." "No need to apologize, pretty. We'll leave you to work," Kento said, and Satoru agreed it was for the best. Even if what she was working on could be finished quickly, he wasn't sure any of them would be able to hold themselves back with desire so ripe in the air it could suffocate them. They grabbed their courting gifts, each gave her a soft kiss on the way out, and as soon as they were outside, Satoru took a deep breath of the fresh air. As much as he would have loved to bask in her aroused fragrance, if he got any harder, it would hurt, and he didn't need that. "Let's go to my place and have a drink. We need to talk," Suguru said as they headed down the stairs. "About what you've been researching and keeping tight-lipped about?" Satoru asked as they got into the car. "Yep," Suguru replied, and Kento pulled out and headed there. When they entered Suguru's apartment, they changed into their slippers, then Suguru and Kento headed to the bar in the corner. "There's some of that overly sweet fruit juice you like in the fridge," Suguru told him, and Satoru headed into the kitchen. He grabbed a bottle of the juice that he knew neither of his friends liked but kept stocked in their homes for him, and joined them in the living room, taking a seat on the sectional. Suguru set up his laptop and connected it to the television. He brought 2 articles up side by side, and Satoru read over them, paying close attention to the section his friend had highlighted. When they finished with those, Suguru brought up one more for them to read. "This makes sense," Kento said. "I agree. It would explain what's been happening because there's no way all 3 of us are mistaken each time," Satoru agreed. After reading all of the information, he understood why Suguru wanted to research it in depth before he said anything. The probability was extremely low, but it wasn't non-existent. "How do we bring this up?" Satoru asked. "Tactfully," Kento started. "We can discuss it next weekend." He and Suguru nodded in agreement. The coming week would be busy for all 3 of them, and it was always better to have any serious discussion with all of them with her. "Let's make plans for Sunday if she's available. We can have dinner here," Suguru suggested. They agreed, and it was silent between them for a brief moment as Suguru disconnected his laptop from the television. A baseball game popped up on screen, and they watched in silence for a while. "Oh, I'm moving the poker game to the Saturday after the casino audit is completed," Satoru informed them. They normally had a game once a month at the end of each month, but with the audit being the last week of the month, he'd moved it to the following weekend. "I'm thinking about asking Saelah to come with us. I want to introduce her to some people," he told them. He'd been thinking about it for a while. He didn't want her to feel like the only people she had to hang out with were the 3 of them when Denny wasn't available. Her work didn't allow her to meet colleagues like others since she worked for herself and from home. "I think that's a good idea. I think she'd get along with a few of them," Kento said, and Suguru nodded in agreement. They stayed until the game was over, then he and Kento left. When the younger alpha dropped him off, he rode the elevator to the top floor and entered his condo. He set up his courting gift on his nightstand before going into the ensuite and showering. It was just after 10, and he had several errands he needed to run the next day. Satoru grabbed his phone and slid into bed to text Saelah. "Good night, little alpha." "Good night, babe." He stared at the text message and a grin spread across his face. It was the first time she called him that, the first time she'd used a term of endearment for him. He and his alpha were pleased. He put his phone on the charger and turned off the bedside lamp, waiting to drift off to sleep.